on her heel. "Yes, darling," Teddy said as they walked down the middle of the restaurant. "Honey, you need to get yourself some nicer pumps." He pointed to the girl's old shoes even though her back was turned. She ignored him. Their booth was in the far corner of the restaurant, under an oblong window that looked out on the mall instead of the parking lot. Through the window, Harit could see a girl standing attentively in a hat and apron at the cookie shop in the food court, waiting for anyone at all to bite. "It's about time we did this," Teddy said, opening his menu and scanning its contents with one outstretched finger, the way one might do to a tax form. It struck Harit how out of place Teddy was. Harit had only ever seen him in the store and once briefly in the parking lot. But now, against the red and orange swells of the bar and grill, Teddy looked like a paper doll that had been plucked from a book. "What are you going to have?" Harit had never had a drink with another person in his life. He'd never had a drink, period, until after Swati's death. A week after the tragedy, Didi came by with a few groceries for his mother, and in the middle of pulling bundles of coriander, tubs of yogurt, and flour from the brown paper bags, she pulled out a 6-pack of Bud Light and set it on the counter, as if it were the most natural thing to give him. Harit froze in the middle of the kitchen, eyeing the beer as if it were a squirrel that had bounded in through an open window. Didi said, "Perhaps that will help," and turned away to put a gallon of milk in the refrigerator. Later, after his Swati act, while reaching for that milk to make a nighttime lassi, Harit saw the beer, large and prominent on the small shelf. He lifted the whole 6-pack up, the cans thumping against each other, and eyed the cold metal carefully. Then, as he had done at 10 years old when extracting an orange Fanta from his parents' icebox, he set the package back on the shelf and pulled off one can. He took it to his room, sat on his bed, opened it, the psst of the can making a much louder sound than he had expected, and had to shove it into his mouth to stop the foam from hitting the floor. He sucked at it, the bubbles burning his throat and the taste acrid and so bitter compared to soda. By the time he finished the can, he was already drunk. He spent the rest of the evening moaning with heartburn into his pillow, but the next night he drank 2 more cans, finally realizing why people got drunk: to forget things. By now he was used to the scratch of the alcohol at the back of his throat, but he also had no idea what it was like to drink in front of someone, or, more precisely, what it was like to be drunk in front of someone. It was this worry that made him order a Coke. "A Coke?" Teddy said. "I didn't take you out so that you could order a Coke, sweetheart. Time for a big boy's drink." "I'll have a vodka soda, and make his a rum and Coke," he said to the waiter, a butch young man with spiked hair, huge arms, and orange-tanned skin. "Sir, please, a Coke," Harit said, stroking his hair nervously with his right hand. "Absolutely not," Teddy laughed. "Rum and Coke, rum and Coke." He pounded on the table with his fists and chortled. The waiter gave an exasperated sigh and walked away. "Well, what's her problem?" Teddy said. His face transformed from gleeful mockery to discomfort as his fleshy cheeks and thick neck erupted in a hectic blush. Harit was confused, assuming that Teddy was referring to the hostess, who was not even in sight. A minute later, the waiter reappeared with a glass of clear liquid over ice for Teddy and a Coke for Harit. Teddy sat quietly as the waiter set the drinks down and walked away. "Well, cheers, dear," he said, raising his glass into the air. Harit picked his drink up, clinked it against Teddy's glass, and took a sip. He gagged. The burning sweetness in his mouth must have been rum, and the rum must have been half piss. Teddy burst out in laughter again. Harit had always thought the jolly dry heave of Teddy's laugh to be comical, but here, in this crowded restaurant where the people in the booth next to theirs peered over the partition to give a stern eye, he hated it. "Honey, don't tell me you've never had rum before." "No." "Have you ever had a drink before?" Harit looked at Teddy angrily and said, "Yes, I have had several." "Oh, really?" Teddy was chortling again. "When?" "After my sister died." Harit hadn't expected to be so mean-spirited.